woke to the sound of my mom climbing out of the bed next to where I slept on the floor. She was getting up to go to the bed, the hospital bed that my dad was in at the end of her bed. It was one we'd rolled into the room a couple days before when the home hospice care had delivered it. She apparently had noticed something different about the way he was breathing. I groggily looked at my watch. It was a little after 2 a.m. on December 1st. So I sat up and offered any help I could give. She said really there was nothing to be done, and she just noticed that his breathing was getting shallower and that it was getting near the end. So she got up and went out of the room to go let my sisters and my aunts and uncles and others who had gathered know. My wife, Christy, and the kids weren't here because it was a little too hard for them to see what was going on. So I got out of bed and I walked over to Dad's bedside and came down and leaned down and put a hand on his now emaciated chest and just decided to sing one of Dad's favorite hymns of the church. So I leaned in close and quietly while others started entering the room, sang, "O Lord my God, when I in awesome wonder consider all the worlds thy hands have made, I see the stars, I hear the rolling thunder, thy power throughout the universe displayed." And I noticed that Dad hadn't taken a breath in a while, but then he did. So I paused just to see if he was going to continue breathing. And as I paused, the past year just kind of rushed over me. It had been almost 12 months since we'd gone to the doctor with Dad because he had a bunch of pain in his chest, and we were hoping for the best, but heard that it was cancer. Dad had fought and won the battle with cancer 30 years earlier. But now he was older and had not the opportunity of taking radiation anymore because of the first bout of cancer. And so he was given 3 to 6 months, up to a year if he chose treatment. And Dad, cogently, chose to have treatment. He had a lot he wanted to do in those extra months. And he made the most of that time. In February, a couple months after, well, a little after my dad had his first round of chemo, he and Mom went down to Palm Springs to visit my mom's brothers and their wives. And so Dad had a chance to sit with Uncle Charlie and Aunt Bonnie, with Uncle Paul and Aunt Annette, and Uncle Bill and Aunt Sherry. And they all hung out for a while together, and Dad had a chance to tell them how much he loved them and how much he appreciated their friendship and their support over the years. And that became a bit of a pattern for Dad. They returned to Washington in March, and Dad started having people over. The neighbors came over for dinner, church friends came over from dinner, people that he'd taught for 30 years in the Everett School District with, they came over for dinner, and each time Dad was talking to them and saying, "Hey, I really wanted to say how much I appreciated your friendship, and I love you." And Dad was not normally that way. Really showed me a lot. He really enjoyed his school friends from when he was a kid. He still met every year, and he did again that year, with kids from Custer Junior High. They had an annual reunion. Here he is, a 69-year-old man, still having a junior high reunion. And was it any wonder that over 500 people attended his memorial service? There were also some great family times during that year. In June, on Mom and Dad's 45th wedding anniversary, Dad had the honor of walking his granddaughter, my niece, down the aisle to give her away. This is the granddaughter that he basically raised because her own dad had walked out of her life before she was 2 years old. But he got to walk her down the aisle. A couple months later, we had a family vacation of our own. 18 of us crammed into a house in Chelan. Had a wonderful time. Early October, Christy and I and the kids went with Mom and Dad to her parents' house in Idaho. My mom and her mom had gone to school together in high school. And then in the early 70s, when we'd had them over for dinner, in walks my father-in-law and sees above my dad's mantle a rifle, and that was it. They became bosom buddies. As families, we vacationed together. We had meals together all the time. It was kind of an arranged marriage with Christy and I. Not really. But our parents were quite pleased. Well, anyway, in Idaho, Dad had an opportunity to go out to Howard's workshop with him and hang out with them, have a good time. And he had a chance again to say how much he appreciated Howard and his friendship. The night before we were to go home, we were all adults sitting around in the living room, and Mom and Dad got up to go to bed a little earlier. And as Dad walked by the couch where Christy and I were seated, he stopped and said, "Hey, I want you to know how proud we are of you two, and how much we're thankful for you, and how you raised the kids." And he went off to bed. Like I said, my dad's Scandinavian. I didn't get that a whole lot. That meant a lot to me. A couple weeks later, back at home, Dad was out helping Mom with some yard work. He blacked out, slipped and fell, and hit his head really bad. I was the front-end assistant manager at Woodinville Costco and realized I need to take some time off. It's not a good time to take off time at Costco, but they gave me the time off I needed to be with Mom and Dad. I started sleeping in that room across the hall. Thanksgiving came and everybody gathered at Mom and Dad's house. Dad had to stay on the couch because he was too weak to get to the table. My little sister wasn't there. She was out having another baby. She was having Dad's, her 4th grandson for Dad and Dad's overall 7th grandson. 2 days later, she walked in and came to Dad's couch and laid down on Dad's shoulder and chest, baby Benjamin, to introduce him. Dad was thrilled, but he could only smile his blessing. 2 days later, the hospital bed arrived. And that's where I find myself now, looking for another breath. There's one there. Others joined in as I sang, "And when I think that God his Son not sparing, sent him to die, I scarce can take it in, that on the cross my burden gladly bearing, he bled and died to take away my sin." It had been over a minute since the last breath, but one more shallow breath, so I jumped into the final verse. "When Christ shall come with shouts of acclamation and take me home, what joy shall fill my heart? Then I will bow in humble adoration and there proclaim, my God, how great thou art. Then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee, how great thou art, how great thou art." And with that, there were no more breaths. Dad had passed while I sang that song. It was a beautiful end. Mr. Toastmaster. Can I follow up with a funny? Just to lighten it up a little bit because you're going into table topics. This is my table topic. So literally, right after that happened, this is all true story. Literally, right after that happened, we're huge Husky fans, and I had learned that from my father. And so over the years, I had learned to do, for my kids' sake, when we score a touchdown, I do this little Husky dance. And they got into it, and they started doing this Husky dance, Husky dance. Anyway, so that's just a fun thing we did in our family. So literally, because I was so thrilled that my dad was finally free of his pain, I got up and I said to everybody, "Okay, this is weird, but I kind of feel like doing a Husky dance." Anyway, that's just rich.